Hey everyone, thanks for waiting. Welcome back to the Lookout. Today is the 30th. This is our evening update on the Colorado fires. We're going to take a look at the Aspen Acres fire, southwest of Pueblo. We're going to check out the fire in Ouray, the Gold Mountain fire, which was pretty active today. And we're going to check out a little bit of Snyder, which is not doing much. And then the fires in the southwest. Update on the Colorado fires. We're going to take a look at the and the fires down in the southwest corner of the state, the Ferris fire, which is not going crazy, but still fairly active. I see some good discussion going on in the comments, so I'll jump in and look at the comments later on. But for now, I'm going to kind of go through my stuff. So I'm going to do the sponsor lead in real quick, and then we'll get right into it. All right, so I see some discussion over here in the chat about whether or not Ouray should be open for business during the fire. Good question. A lot of our mountain communities, places that have the worst fire issues, also are so reliant on that, Memorial Day to Labor Day tourist income. It really can be devastating. I'm from Lassen County, and Chester, Lake Almanor, got completely shut down for the whole summer, basically starting in late July and August, completely shut down by a Dixie fire, and it definitely wiped out some of the business. So tough things to juggle. We'll jump in. We're going to look at the Aspen fire here first, and then we'll when we talk about Ouray, we'll kind of talk about that topic. So thanks for suggestion. All right, so starting off as we always do, just with the big picture. This low pressure, this big low that has been kind of moving through for the last week, continues to kind of influence what's going on here, and we've finally got a little bit of moisture coming up out of the Gulf of Mexico that's spinning around this high pressure down here and up through Colorado. And so you see these pretty enormous storms kind of blossoming here into Kansas and Nebraska this afternoon, right along the kind of Colorado-Kansas border. Really massive thunderstorms. And so those came through, some of those storms came right over the fire here in outside of Pueblo. And you can kind of see through the course of the day here, you can see our pocket fire in Arizona, the Babylon fire here in eastern Utah, and then out here, this line of storms kind of goes right over. You can kind of see it mixing with the smoke here. Here's the fire in Beulah right here, and you see that the storm kind of lines up, and line of moisture goes right over the storm, which couldn't have hurt. I don't think they got a lot of rain today, but having cloud cover doesn't hurt. You can also see the fire here blowing up pretty well in Ouray. That's our big picture, and there's a kind of closer in view of the satellite mixed with heat, just kind of stepping through the day. You can see that this fire out in Utah, the Babylon fire, was really active today. The most kind of active in the region, putting up a lot of smoke. The cloud cover here, watching that storm build up over western Kansas through the afternoon is pretty impressive. The thing with the storm today is it kind of obscured. It's hard to see what's going on here, and we haven't got a new perimeter since about noon today on the fire here, the Aspen Acres fire. One thing that was good about this morning was just that it was relatively clear this morning, and they had an opportunity to fly air tankers quite a lot for about 3 hours this morning. I don't know what just happened to that screen, but you can see it's kind of clear in the morning that flew a lot of air tankers. So This is the latest perimeter we got. Like I said, it's noon. Around noon is when they flew it, so we don't have a great picture of what happened through the course of the day. But the white line here is yesterday's perimeter from last night. And you can see that the growth was kind of on the northwest portion of the fire. So we're kind of coming around here to look at the fire from the north over Willow Valley. The good news was that at noon, the fire had not burned kind of into the center of Willow Valley here. We don't know what's happened since then. But what we do know is that this morning, air tankers were really active on this kind of north flank of the fire, trying to protect the densest part of the community here. There's a report that at least 100 homes have been destroyed, and that's not too surprising just looking at the density of these yellow dots out here, each one being a structure. But it was good that they had an opportunity to use the tankers today. And like we've said often, the tankers are most effective out here in the rangelands, just because retardant gets caught up in trees. It doesn't get to the ground all the time. If there's a forest fire burning and there's retardant on the ground, the fire can kind of burn under the retardant. And so retardant doesn't stop the fire in forest fires. It can stop the fire out in the grasslands, in the rangeland, where it just kind of, the fire can't burn the retarded grass. But in timber, not quite as effective. It slows the fire down. It moderates fire behavior. It helps firefighters, buy some time to get in there and actually dig a line around the fire. But, retardant in heavy timber, it doesn't stop the fire outright. The heat satellites are showing a little bit of spread back to the west here. And it's hard to tell. We always kind of have to take that stuff with a grain of salt. Show that the fire's kind of done what we call a slope reversal, where the wind was blowing it down slope, but now it's crossed over and it's burning with the slope up to the north here. So that just opens up more perimeter that they're going to have to deal with. And that the fire, if it becomes well established down here and then we get the strong southwesterly, if we look at it here from that perspective, if the fire does become well established here on St. Charles Peak, then it's just more fire out here that the southwest wind can then take and run down towards Willow Valley. So wish we had a little fresher intel for you guys, but like I said before, we're spoiled here in California in that we have a dedicated plane that they spend tens of millions of dollars on that flies all day long and gives perimeters, often during the day. But Colorado has got a mapping plane, and it's an improvement from when I was doing most of my career. We had a plane that flew out of Boise at night, and you got one perimeter every 24 hours. And other than that, we were relying on people out there on ground and people in helicopters. But Colorado is kind of behind California. Colorado is one of the more technologically adventurous and spending money on this stuff. So it is helpful. So that's what we got for intel here. I want to show a couple videos. Someone liked the retarded grass thing there. Okay. This is just the image from yesterday of the fire kind of racing down into the valley. This is a video of a guy driving his tractor, putting in a control line across the field with a disc. Like we said, if you're watching our coverage of the fires in the Cottonwood fire, is that if you have the means to safely stay and protect your property and fight fire, you should, by all means, do that. The fire agencies always tell everyone to evacuate because they don't want to deal with people who don't know what they're doing, staying too long, causing traffic jams at the last minute. But if you have the skills and the know-how and that kind of culture of operating under pressure, getting things done, understanding what needs to be done, there's not enough firefighters ever during a fire like this. And if you can stay, if you have a water system, if you have a slip-in fire pump, if you know what you're doing, this kind of stuff really helps. So, there's this tension. Definitely where, like in Australia, they tell people to stay and defend their property. And then we had a huge firestorm in Australia, 10 years ago, and like dozens and dozens of people died because the fire was so extreme. So it's tough. We're kind of in the United States, we tend to be more kind of controlled by lawyers and risk managers, and So a lot of the agencies still are not on board with encouraging people to stay and defend. But it's all about getting training ahead of time, about getting experience. And working in prescribed fire is a way to gain a lot of experience with fire operations, with hoses, pumps. And I recommend, if there's prescribed fire association, burn association, or a way that you can get involved, the skills you can build on prescribed fires are enormously helpful when wildfires happen, as far as understanding where you will be safe, what you'll need to be safe, how to operate equipment, how to talk on the radio, how to build a plan. This is kind of another shot from yesterday, just kind of showing, it's people are all surprised when like grass that looks green can burst into flame. And during drought, almost everything will burn. Cottonwood will burn, lilac will burn, aspen will burn. Stuff that people maybe look at and think it's green and it's not going to burn. Drought can change all of that. So it's deceptive. You look at, most people look at green vegetation, green forest, and they're like, oh, that's fine. It's green. It's not going to burn. And fire finds the fuel and drives itself. And what was green 10 minutes ago, when you put it in the middle of a forest fire, it turns brown quick. Right, here's another shot just of the kind of the huge amount of active flame front yesterday, as seen from the valley here to the northeast of the fire. The caption is Justin Burke. The caption is "Time to Split." Yes, sir. Okay, so just little hints here. So one things we see as firefighters is we see that there's grass right up against this trailer. We see that there's bushes right up against this trailer. These are all these little details really matter when it comes to whether or not your house will survive. I worked a lot in Paradise after the campfire burned 25,000 structures. And what you didn't see the cool, funky old shacks, the old kind of ratty cabins and stuff that gave that town the charm. What you saw that survived were the houses that were well maintained, that had fresh paint, that had tight eave corners on their roofs. We have quite a bit of stuff on here about this, if you're on the lookout, about home hardening, and it makes a big difference. When there's embers flying everywhere, little cracks, embers start the grass on fire here. The grass catches your house on fire, your house is gone. Little cracks in your eaves, moss on the edge of your roof. These are places that embers stick and they get into your house. We talk about how houses are like wooden boats, right? If you have a wooden boat and you don't scrape it and paint it and maintain it and keep all those little cracks sealed up, your boat sinks. And if you don't do the same thing with your house, if you have little cracks in your siding, if you have open little gaps in your eaves, if you have that moss growing on your gutter, those are places, those are leaks. Those are places that embers get in and catch your house on fire, and then your house is sunk. All right. So anyway, thanks to people on Facebook for posting this stuff. Sorry if you can't see necessarily who the credits were, but we're doing what we can here with the time we've got. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how there's some other fires nearby here and how those may affect, that the fire could potentially burn all the way out to this previous fire. This previous fire here burned in 2016, and it burned into an area that had burned 5 years earlier. And often that's what stops larger fires when we have these critical conditions, as they'll burn into another burn. So just looking around for kind of what we call open source intel, we found this drone panorama that was shot in this other burn. And you can see this 10-year-old burn, all sorts of standing dead, a lot of down material, but there's also really heavy sprouting of brush and hardwoods. And no one really likes going out camping in a burnt forest, but fire's part of these ecosystems. And what animals might see in this burnt forest is a whole bunch of fresh young brush and food to eat. And this forest, any forest you look at out here, burned sometime in its past. And so it's a difficult part of learning to read a landscape and learning to live in a landscape, is that fires happen. and they are a shock to our system. They don't happen often enough that we're used to it. But this is kind of this is part of the cycle. And we could talk all day about what's good fire, what's bad fire, but the fact is that we get a lot of diversity in the landscape after a fire that has benefits and drawbacks for the critters and for the people and everything else. And but one of the only ways for us to kind of continue to survive in these mountain communities is to learn to live with snags and to learn to live with burnt forest, because it's just what's happening now. For those of us who spend our whole lives watching forest burn, you have to kind of start to find the hope in the new growth and in the new forest and in the baby trees, because otherwise none of us, we just would all have to like move to a city and like lock ourselves in a art gallery or something and like change our whole outlook on, lives that are based on an understanding of land, right? It's massive change in our lifetimes, a lot to process, a lot of trauma, but you have to kind of find that hope in the regeneration, the new growth, the refresh, the renewal of landscape, right? A landscape without fire is a landscape that's kind of full of death, of dead trees and trees that are dying because they're too old or too dense. And a burnt landscape often is just teeming with new life. So I know that doesn't necessarily help you much right now if you're worried that your house burnt down, but that's just kind of my insight from spending my whole career watching places burn down and trying to stay kind of on the planet and chipper through it all. Right. Okay. So this is just kind of, for those of you who aren't from kind of a brown Beulah, this is just kind of another kind of snapshot of what you've got there, where you got pine and mixed conifer and fir and a lot of really dense forest and a lot of heavy fuels. And that's why these fires kind of become unstoppable, is just because we've got this really lush, beautiful, dense forest. And it's also why people want to live there, right? It's like it's a real variety, a lot of shade, etc. And then out in the flats here, these places where the fire's kind of burning out in the flats, you've got kind of juniper and pinyon pine and grasslands. So kind of we're right here on this kind of ragged edge of the desert, right? These are some of the last forests you've got for until you get to frickin' Arkansas, right? Like here we are on the edge of the Great Plains. So living on the edge of the desert, you got to get used to things being hot and dry. And we think of nice lush green forest, but we're also kind of like, it's a mix. It's a really weird mix here of going from the top of the hill, lush forest, to the bottom of the hill, Great American kind of Great Plains desert. So that's your Aspen fire update. We'll give you Aspen Acres. We'll give you updates as we get new perimeters and etc. But oftentimes we just have to kind of work with what we got. All right. Someone says, at this point, this shouldn't even be happening. With all the tech and supplies at hand, this should have been handled at the top. It happens, man. There's limits. There's real limits to technology. And the last people to tell you that will be the technologists who are trying to sell you something. Now I'm going to remember to turn my map back on, I swear. There's a company in Colorado that has jet engines hooked up to like fire gel, and they think that they're going to stop forest fires by going out and like just jizzing giant clouds of goo, fire retardant goo over the landscape. Massive area fire denial is their branding. And that's not going to work because these are the kinds of conditions when we have fires. We have these conditions where like the fire runs 25,000 acres in the first 45 minutes. No, first day, right? And so the more we throw technology at putting out every fire, the more we create these overstock conditions that allow fires like this to be enormously destructive. And so there's not necessarily a technical solution to this problem. There's a lot of tech bros and huge investment money right now chasing that and trying to sell people drone swarms and AI everything. But it's kind of like bombing for peace, right? You can't bomb your way out of this circumstance. You can't. More helicopters doesn't stop the fires on the worst days. All right. So here we are now in Leadville. We'll just, sorry, I kind of snuck that in on you. The map. Show the map. All right. So now we're in Leadville. Leadville is up pretty high. And we got Aspen over here and Snowmass and 70 corridor. And down here we got the Willow fire. The Willow fire is burning right across the valley from Leadville, up pretty high and super thick forest, hard to get to. If we look at where this fire was yesterday, when it first started, it was here. And then yesterday evening, it kind of ran out in here. And then we haven't got any super fresh mapping on this fire. What's this mapping here? This mapping was from about 9 o'clock this morning. So the fire's kind of doubled in size here. Like we said in our morning broadcast, we expect the fire potentially is going to kind of burn this entire basin here down towards the hatchery just because we don't have access and we have critical conditions with the weather for the foreseeable future. So not a lot to report on Willow. Someone asked about like, hey, Leadville's got this big races coming. Should they get canceled? And it kind of relates to that Ouray question is like, well, what are these fires going to do? Are they going to make explosive big runs and trap people and kill them? It really depends on where we have some decent ideas about how these things work. But how much are you going to trust the model? How much are you going to trust the model? Like, do you want to bring in like thousands of people and tie up the roads and create the traffic jams that we associate with big festivals and other events? Probably not. And do we want to subject these people to smoke that are coming? Probably not. So it becomes kind of impossible conditions for the politicians and the business people and the fire managers, especially the firefighters who don't want to be stuck in traffic, don't want to burn people up, don't want to be kind of liable if the fire kind of decides to make an extraordinary run. So no easy answers there, but this fire is just kind of, like we said, it's already kind of contained by the geography here, but likely to burn out this kind of whole basin. And what firefighters would be thinking about at this point is like, what opportunities do we have to cut the fire off here? Do we actually have realistic opportunities on these road systems? We always have to think like a week out, 2 weeks out. Like, okay, if we think we're going to try to hold this road system here, what would that look like? What kind of work would we have to do to improve that to the point it would be something that could hold a fire? Just going to see if we can look here in Google Earth at what this kind of corridor looks like. So we say like, that we think potentially the fire is going to burn down to here just because this is where we actually start to have access for dozers and for people. And it takes time to prepare a fire line. Right? If you think it's going to, what the fire behavior analyst is doing right now on this fire is making some projections of how long they think it's going to take for the fire to get to here. And so we saw that the fire kind of doubled in size and burned like another mile yesterday. So it's like, okay, well, if the conditions are going to stay the same, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, we got 4 days maybe till the fire gets here. What can we get done in that time? Can we send in 80 dudes with chippers and chainsaws and dudettes too, and prep this road and get it done enough that we can light a backfire here and burn our fire? Like if we say we're going to prep this road here, the objective of prepping that road is that you get it ready where you can come in here and you can light this on fire on purpose when the conditions are right, and thereby create a control line. When the fire's ripping and it's spotting a quarter mile or whatever else, it's really, you're not just going to wait for the fire to kind of show up at your fire line. That's just, a road that's been kind of brushed. You're going to try to put fire on the ground. So that's why Hot Shots and other firefighters put fire on the ground, is to help secure that line. So that's kind of probably what's happening right now. When you hear that they're scouting and looking for opportunities, it's basically they're trying to build what we call the box. And so right now what they're doing, they're probably scouting out potential places to build lines. If they have dozers, they're using them where they've got opportunities. So let's see, I got an ops map here for this fire. Right now the operations map is pretty basic. It just has divisions, Division Alpha and Zulu. and there's no fire line shown except they got some potential fire line shown on their operations map this morning for Willow, and it's shown that they're going to put hand line along here, along the base of the slope, and then they're going to see if they can go up this ridge, kind of hook around, and tie into the road system above these spot fires. They probably might have had a different plan before these spot fires. There's kind of a little road trail system in there, but it looks like the spot fires maybe are over it. So they're like, okay, well, since we got spot fires out here now, can we kind of tie these existing clearances and stuff together to make a line? So it takes a while to get the strategy. You don't just, some fires you can just show up with crews and say like, hey, you're going to go to work on the heel on Alpha, and you're going to go work on Zulu, and we're going to go direct, and we'll touch our chainsaw bars together when we get to the other side. But when you got such heavy, inaccessible terrain, heavy topography, and a lack of crews because there's other fires in the region, you right off the bat, you're going to start building a bigger box. Look for the places where we have an opportunity to be successful. We're not going to worry about this side of the fire because it's going to burn up into the rocks. This whole side of the fire, like, you could say that this fire is already 30% contained because it's surrounded with rock on the side. It's like this part of the fire is really going to burn out to here and be done. So they're not going to go and like probably put a bunch of people uphill the fire going direct on this line, because they're like, well, we might as well just tie in over here into these rocks, because this is, why would you put people uphill this fire that can only just burn into the rocks? So there's always tension between kind of safety and expediency. And, if you say, oh, we're going to wait a week for the fire to burn out to here, then it means you have to like keep firefighters around for a week to make sure that happens, right? And so there's just a lot of competing factors to go into kind of picking a direct versus indirect strategy. But oftentimes direct strategy goes out the window when you can't safely put people in because of the fuel loading, the weather, etc. So that's kind of some narrative on what people are thinking about there on Willow, I'm guessing. I'm not talking to anyone there, but spent 20 years in fire camps making all the maps for the people that were making the decisions. And so a lot of what we did was kind of create maps for them with the ownership and everything else on it, so they could start thinking about where they could build their box. Okay, so here we are at Ouray. Get the big picture view here. We got some fires out here that have burned in the past, but not much else fire history, right? We got the fire largely surrounded by rock here. If you go out to the southeast. And so, as with kind of this morning report, the fire hasn't really moved downhill much towards Portland or the 550 corridor. It's kind of cranked off over the mountain, and today it crossed Cow Creek here and made a run up the mountain. So we kind of thought that would probably happen. It also, looking at the heat satellites, and it's a little hard to tell if these are accurate or not, spotted over here on the Courthouse Mountain. That could just be a kind of anomaly, because these satellites are way the heck out in space, and sometimes they kind of project their points in the wrong spot. We don't know whether or not it's there, but what we do know is the fire crossed the creek, made a big run. A lot of the smoke you saw today was that fire making a big kind of slope-driven run up out of Cow Creek. So similarly here, pretty unlikely we're going to like pick this fire up directly. We're not going to go send firefighters out to scratch a line through the aspen stands and the thick timber. Looking at their operations maps, they've got some kind of planned hand line and dozer line to tie from the creek up here towards these flats up here where things, and they got planned line across kind of this area to the north that I don't really know the geography here, but you've got kind of irrigated pastures, and you've got kind of scrub lands and range lands here. And these areas on the north provide an opportunity to engage the fire. So the fire's on the top of the mountain. Here we're north of, we're just kind of east of Ridgeway here. And this is going to be a place that can engage the fire, is kind of when it gets out in the flats, when it gets out where the roads are. Not a lot of homes out in here. If there were homes sprinkled all over here, they'd have more pressure to try to put the fire out, but they could let the fire back down into here and have time right now to be kind of prepping lines to keep the fire to take the fire when it gets to them, right? But it's likely the fire is going to kind of burn this area here. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, because just with the terrain and everything as it is, lack of options really for doing anything else. The fire's kind of not giving them the time they would need to do the huge amount of work it would take to put a fire line in here that could hold the fire. Now, if it rained or something and the fire kind of hung up, then sometimes you get a chance. And sometimes you go and you put in a line out here, maybe find some trail systems or something, and you put in a line and you fire it, and then it rains, and then you're kind of screwed because you've kind of put some fire on the ground here, and it kind of goes out because it rained. And then you've got kind of a scabby burn here, and the fire's still coming, and it can really get messy. And so if you're interested in like checking out, learning more about firing operations and kind of the sequencing and all the kind of things that can go wrong with firing operations, get on the lookout here on our website. And check out the firing operations category over here on the side, because we've got a lot of different, we spend a lot of time talking about firing operations. And if you just search for firing operations, pretty much any fire we've been talking about that's got firing operations on it will have a story about it, including like indirect attack, how large fires get stopped, that we wrote last September. To me, this stuff is really fascinating, and I encourage you all to learn about it, because this is how we fight big fires, is with indirect attack and firing operations. So we got a road system over here that goes over from Cow Creek over towards the next drainage, and you'll have to forgive me while I look up what that is. We probably won't hold the fire on this road system, even though it provides good access and it's already all kind of there, just because we don't like to fight fire on mid-slope lines. It's really dangerous to put firefighters uphill where the fire is going to come through here, and then it's going to run up this mountain, and it wants to go to the top of the mountain always. And so if you're a firefighter and you're up here trying to hold this road with the fire below you, and it's sitting in deep smoke, and it's like the fire's going to spot over you anyway most of the time, and you're just not going to be successful. So that's why we go to ridges and do firing operations, is because we've learned the hard way that mid-slope lines are a good recipe for either killing people, burning up vehicles, not holding the fire, right? So that's why I've been saying that I think this fire is just going to really do what it wants and burn out here into like the place where the billionaires come to ski alone. Is that what people say? The Cimarron Ridge Club? Cimarron Mountain Club. I looked that place up today. 13 families. Only 13 families get to own property out there. That's wild. So I hope they got fire insurance. And yeah, looking at that big picture, what I looked at is that Cimarron Ridge over here, the club, is at the same elevation basically as where the fire is burning now. So you'd expect the fuels conditions to be similar kind of through this entire zone. And right now what the fuels conditions are showing us is that the fire just wants to kick ass. And so we don't expect it to stop doing that. Yeah, so here's the forecast for Ouray for updated a couple hours ago. What we care about here, again, is relative humidity. And right now, today it was 20, and the fire made a crazy good slope-driven run. Tomorrow it's going to be 11, and then it's going to be 9, 9, 11. Tomorrow's going to be warmer. Tomorrow's going to be 16, 17 degrees warmer, and half the humidity, with 23-mile-an-hour wind gusts coming out of the south. So these 3 days, we got wind gusts of 23 miles an hour, sustained winds of 6, almost single-digit humidity, and warm weather. Like, those are the recipe for this fire to exceed people's expectations, unless they expect that it's going to romp and stomp. And that's what we've been talking about the last couple of days. Like, you should expect that these fires are going to kick ass based on the fact that the weather hasn't changed and they're kicking ass now. So basic fire behavior, conditions haven't changed since yesterday. tomorrow's going to do the same thing. So regarding whether or not we should close the valley to traffic, I'd say I'm glad I'm not in charge of that decision. I don't think really that this fire is going to really, it doesn't have really the dynamics it needs to really push down into here or to threaten the town. So that's a tough call. But I think the bigger issue is that tourists take a lot of resources. Firefighting takes a lot of resources. So, you know, you're trying to move gas and food and water and porta potties and everything you need to like mobilize a small army to fight a fire out here. And everything about the tourism is kind of competing with that. So, yeah, it sucks. It sucks because everyone out here's lifeline is tourism for the most part, right? Sucks that you're going to have to shut it down. But it's a safe thing to do. It's kind of the sensible thing to do. It sucks, I know. I think in general we need to get more comfortable with operating around active fires because we're moving into hotter, drier climate, and fires are just kind of an increasingly a large part of our reality. But realistically, it's I mean, if you live out here, maybe you can put in the comments like how bad's the traffic here on July 4th, on the third week of July, like, and just ask yourself if you've got firefighters that are trying to kind of come on and off the line every morning and every evening, whether or not the status quo summer traffic is kind of conducive to them doing that safely, efficiently. Firefighters need sleep. You know, we don't want them sitting in traffic for 2 hours. Yeah. Ben's back on here. Jeez, I'm gonna turn off the chat if it gets too unruly. Oh, hey people. All right, so that's kind of your big picture view, indirect attack, crystal ball. This fire's going to keep moving out into the place where the billionaires ski alone and create some new habitat for the critters and regenerate the aspen. And it's not the end of the world. It sucks for the tourism. It sucks for the smoke. Probably not going to burn up the community or the people that live down here along the bottom. It is going to probably jack up some of the more Gucci real estate. But like we said before, like if you're anywhere between the fire and Route 50, this fire should be on your radar. You know, no great reason besides weather change that it won't burn out here for quite a while. When's a flanking fire line dangerous, like what happened in Storm King Mountain? It's a good question. One thing that we could talk about here with Storm King Mountain is that sometimes the fire kind of can back through an area and not kill all the vegetation, and then it can burn again, even like the next day. It's called a reburn. And so that flanking fire, the fire kind of backing down the mountain, not killing everything, is kind of superheating and drying all the vegetation. Like if you have 6 or 8 foot tall gamble oak and you have a fire that just kind of backs through and burns up all the leaves on the ground, but leaves all the leaves in the vegetation above that are all super dry now because you just baked it in the oven for a day or two. Then when the fire gets some wind on it or it gets dry again, then you can have a head fire that burns through the vegetation above. And that's what happened on Storm King Mountain near here on the I-70 corridor in 1994. Killed 14 firefighters. Dirty burn. Real estate is century-old ranchers. Okay, thanks for the local flavor there. I'm going to jump out of here real quick and go up to Snyder. Not much going on Snyder. This is the bastard fire that killed 3 firefighters last week. We've got kind of the white line is yesterday's mapping and the red line is today's. And we don't really see much happening. New spread outside of the previous mapping. Could be a little bit going on here, but we turn on our heat dots. Yellow dots are old heat. We're interested in red and orange dots here, and we don't really see any. This fire is kind of dying down. I think my question with this fire is, so we put people out here and they died, and what were we protecting? Like we've got this kind of mandate from the gods of fire in Washington, D.C. that we're going to put out every fire full suppression of all fires all the time, no questions asked, right? And when we look at the fire history here, we see that this area has had lots of fires. And that is, we talked about yesterday. Here we are off the 70 corridor, kind of west of Grand Junction. This is like this landscape scale. Biggest river in the west, Colorado River, cuts through into the Rockies here and channels the winds. And so that's one reason you get big ripper fires here. So we put a crew out here. We dropped them off out in front of 2 other fires with some garden tools, basically, to try to put out a fire that, I mean, this fire, look at what it did with no suppression, right? No suppression, no effective suppression. This fire burned and then it stopped, right? By the time they got the firefighters mobilized and everything else, like, this fire pretty much burned what it wanted to burn, and that was done, because it's like running into like freaking hoodoo wasteland, crazy canyon shit. Right. And so why put people out here at all? Why are we trying to, like, why kill firefighters? Why put people out here under the like worst conditions of the decade with some garden tools with fires upwind of them to try to put out the fire? Like, what are we trying to gain? Sure, in some circumstance, fires are going to threaten communities, but we should be living with the fact that fires are going to get big and out of control when the conditions are crazy anyway. And so I'm not throwing shade on the people that flew the helicopter out there or the people that made the tactical call of where to suppress this fire, but I am throwing shade on the people that have decided that we're going to put out every fire, no matter what, because that's what's politically safe, and what some real blowhard people like Franklin Otis Carroll, who came on the program here, have been pushing for. Frank Carroll said that he felt like the dog that caught the bus. Your dog chases the bus every day, and you're like, what's the dog going to do when it catches the bus? Franklin Carroll said, I feel like the dog that caught the bus. I've been telling the feds that they need to put out every fire. Looks like I'm going to get my way. And so, well, great, you got your way, and now we're trying to put out every fire, and we just start killing people because we're putting them out into suicidal missions with freaking garden tools during a freaking hurricane. So no easy answers on that, but obviously there's nothing out here that was worth sacrificing our finest brave young men and women. We do save a bunch of sandstone from getting smudged with sage. I don't know, it's crazy. I don't get it. Firefighting's not always heroic. And it's kind of like fighting a war in Afghanistan or something. It's like everyone wants to think that their kid died fighting some noble, great cause, saving humanity. And oftentimes firefighting it's not noble, and people die for no good reason. No good reason to save some sagebrush or some sandstone cliffs. All right, so anyway, if your kid died in this fire, my heart breaks for you. And I don't want to turn the screws on you or make you feel like they weren't heroic. They were a great person. They were brave, and but they just like the soldiers, the generals sometimes make bad calls, and then us civilians and other people have to sacrifice our children for really failed policies. Yikes. Okay, well, down to the Ferris fire here, down by, I'm forgetting every day what this community is down here, Cortez. Ferris fire hasn't burned much new ground. It's kind of flanking out on the sides. It's getting put out, and there you go. Not a lot to report on Ferris. We can look at the pocket fire. Oh yeah, the Babylon fire, we'll jump into Utah just because we're right here. This fire is continuing to kind of do whatever it wants out here on Horse Mountain near Blanding, kind of south of Moab. And this fire is also going to burn the fuel available to it and then mainly be put out by natural barriers, because there's just not a lot we can do as far as kind of a cohesive firefighting strategy. There's people bombing this with retardant and stuff, but fire pretty much is also doing what it wants. All right, fireweed, is that Mary? Mary fireweed on there? Or is it a different one? All right, quart. All right, pocket. Let's jump in the pocket. Pocket fire here. We watched yesterday. We were talking about firing operations some more. This fire is outside of Sedona. Sedona down here. And we got all sorts of cosmic rock formations here that probably won't be hurt by fire. And fire's spreading a little bit kind of to the south. And then we've been watching kind of on the north here as they've been doing firing operations off the road system. And it looks like a lot of this, where we're seeing here, is firing that they've been doing. Like when you see a finger like this, often it means that they used a trail or scratched in some line here and brought fire out on it. You can see like maybe a little 2-track there. And that's how we contain big fires. We prep line, we fire it. Fire kind of burns in on itself. And often on a big fire, like a large proportion of the acreage burned is actually burned by firefighters using indirect tactics. So that's pocket. Okay. So what do I got to show you on any of these other tabs? I got a lot of tabs going here, people. We got fire. Okay, this Snyder. Snyder, they're showing black line is kind of contained, but a lot of it we saw hasn't really moved. Okay. We had some pictures yesterday of mop up on the cottonwood fire. Cottonwood's not doing much today. It is handy to come and look at that the conditions have stayed really dry on cottonwood last couple of days. Like humidity kind of surged night before last. Yesterday it really stayed low, but the fire's kind of done its business, burned everything it had available to it. Looking at kind of current conditions here on cottonwood, it's still kind of smoking away on the kind of north flank, but not a lot going on there. We looked already at the map for pocket. Okay, so I looked at some forecasts here, and there's not a lot to report on there that's new. It's just we know it's going to be hot and dry. This is kind of a look around back at the Ouray fire of like just the ground that it's got to burn into if you go out like maybe 20 miles. It's just this expanse of kind of unbroken forest fuels and difficult terrain. All right, so I'll take a little look at the comments here. Looks like you guys are chugging right along. We took down the Squatch Duty shirt I had up because we're out of extra large. But if you aren't extra large, if you're extra large, etc., you can get a Squatch Duty shirt. And then we got a variation on that. That's we got hoodies of this. And we also just have t-shirts of Bigfoot clandestinely lighting the woods on fire. This is what Frank Carroll thinks hotshots look like. Okay, Beulah is 70% gone. Okay. Okay, well, lots of comments going on here. Got Contrarian telling people to like and subscribe. Thanks, Contrarian. Do appreciate the regulars here. Some people are sneaking some comments through. We have a whole list of banned comment words. I thought we had geoengineering banned, HARP banned. His presence within, telling us that wildfires started their geoengineering HARP and land grabs, which I don't really believe that bullshit. We're not big on conspiracy theories around here, and usually we will block you if you are spreading horse shit. HARP fires aren't. I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna like come in and buy the cliffs above Ouray because we burned all the sticks off. Oh, just gonna look at some comments here. Do I know if the Amtrak Zephyr service has been interrupted? I don't think it has been. Ben says he knows firefighters have died fighting fire and that it doesn't appreciate me disparaging the memory. I'm not disparaging the memory of the firefighters, but I am disparaging the memory of firefighters that I'm disparaging the decisions that put firefighters out in harm's way when the fire doesn't need to be fought. And there's a lot to letting fires burn. There's times that we can't. There's a lot of reasons we can't let fires burn. There's a lot of places we can't let fires burn. Most of California, we can't let fires burn because we got too many people living in the woods and they're going to burn up houses, and it's just we can't do it. But there's places like Alaska. There's places like the Frank Church Wilderness in Idaho where you got millions of acres. There's places in Montana. There's places, lots of places in the Klamath where we don't need to fight fires. We can let the fires burn. They're only going to do good in a lot of places. And so when we drop a helitack crew into the Marble Mountains to put out a single tree snag and someone gets killed by a snag, like, to me, that's not glorious. They shouldn't have been there. Like, it was not a good call to put that fire out. It was not necessary. And so the desire of agency leaders and politicians to avoid risk, they pass the risk on to the firefighters. And so I'm just saying it's not the guy on the helitack's crew fault. It's not the dude on the hand crew. It's not the woman that is working on the helitack. It's not her fault that she got a bad mission. But it wasn't heroic to go out and cut down a snag in the Marble Mountains that was a fire that was going to clean up a previous burn. I got friends on hotshot crews that they get put in terribly risky assignments all the time on fires that are burning in old fire scars that are cleaning up the burn. And I hope they don't die. But if they do die, I'm not going to say that what they were doing was God's work, that they were protecting the land. I'm going to say they're doing their job. But it's not going to make me feel great that they died. I won't be able to say like, oh, they died because they were out there saving God's green creation. Because they know that they're out there putting out a fire that we should let burn. They know that they're getting asked to work in a snag patch that the fire is going to clean up. So, please don't read it as me disparaging those individuals who are doing their jobs, who are taking orders from people that are making political decisions and uninformed on what the reality is. Back to full suppression. Okay. Just looking at your comments here. All right, people. Well, all business over here. People talking about reintroducing beavers. Got Bigfoot in Montana. We'll do something on beavers here. We also got a special coming up here with a good friend who's been a fire ecologist in Utah and a prescribed burner and burn boss and fire boss, Linda Chappell. We did an interview on Friday. We're going to publish that as soon as I got a minute from doing all these nonstop updates. We're trying to, how can we have good conversations about this stuff? How can we kind of move beyond the what a friend of mine calls the three-legged stool of fire reporting, where you got the villain is the fire, the victim is the homeowner, and what's the third one? Victim, villain, and hero. Hero's a firefighter. victims, the homeowner, and the villain is always the fire. And so you take those three elements and you write a story, and then you get it published, and that's how people have tended to think about fire. One thing that's happening now is like AI is starting to write fire reports for newspapers, and it's been trained on 40 years of people getting the story wrong when they report on fire. So we got AI now writing shitty fire stories that have the same three elements, that never ask the question of like, why did the homeowner build his house there in the first place? Are you really a victim if you like build your house in the woods, and know the hazard, and don't cut your brush, and don't rake your pine needles, and then the fire burns your house down? Like, we don't ask enough of those questions. I like this. Beavers are not enough. We need genetically altered koala bears to cut down fuels in the canopy. I think what we need is like cross of like goats and elephants, and then we could like get some acres done. Goats aren't big enough. They do good stuff, but we need them to be like 10 times the weight, kind of like a D6 cat. That's a goat. Okay. Thank you all. I think I should probably cut out. Enough of this talking. I'll play the credits here, and you guys can chat a little more, and then I'm going to jump off. Sweep your forests, rake the forests, take care of each other, cut your brush, learn how to burn, and stay positive.
don't want nothing, and it looks like that's what I'm gonna get. Sometimes I feel I need something. Taking my time and to help me forget about everything. Too much things run around in my brain, so come on, sweetness. Won't you help to ease my pain? Oh, love me, baby. Love me like I really mean it. I squeeze me, mama, then pinch me so I know I didn't dream it. I guess I do want something, but I can't seem to find it yet. Sometimes I feel like I'm nothing. You say I'm nothing you could ever forget. Well, that's just one thing. You said they kept me hanging on. Sometimes I could just scream. Baby, don't you do me wrong. I love you, darling, and you know that I love to show you. Ah, come on, sweetness, please let me get to know you. Yeah. Walk it down. Bass. A little drums now. Can you feel it? Here we go, kick it. Hey, oh, sit up quick, you won't miss a link. Just get into the groove and let your backbone slip. So very, very funky, make it get on down. Do a fucking strut, let's say walk it on down, walk it. James Brown, Fishbone, I'll get down. Here we go, kick it. Now y'all locked into this funky boogie beat. Just keep your booty running and forget about your feet. That is until you hear the bass, they have to come around. Do a fucking strut, let's say walk it on down, walk it. Sprain a ligament, slip your backbone, shake a shimmy, boogie boogie kick it. See some of y'all doing strut, see some of y'all doing shuffle. Well, if you like disco, baby, guess what? It's time to hustle. Here we go. duck. Bell bottoms. Disco socks. Yahoo. Shit, goddamn. Fuck it all, kick it. Got sitting in the queue, got sugar on the shelf, just you and me, baby, there's no one else. Come on and shake your body, just lose yourself. Now shake your little booty like a Keebler elf, shake it. Give me your cookie now. From scratch. So hot sticky. Big another batch. See some of y'all doing a step. Some of y'all doing a shuffle. Well, if you like disco, baby, well, guess what? It's time to do the hustle again. Here we go. But I like polyester. I'm John Travolta. Fuck it all, giggin'. Walk it down. A little smaller. Smaller. Everybody. This was the land of the free and the home of the brave. Till they took it. Careful what you say on the telephone. You better close the drapes when you get home. You better watch what you're doing and you better behave. Be in the land of the free and the home of the brave. This was the home of the brave. Well, you see all your choices on the color TV. Here's who you are and here's what you need. You better watch what you're thinking and choose what you say. In the land of the free and the home of the brave. This was the home of the brave. And no, I ain't bitching about what I've been given. The American dream, just fitting my kind of living. If there's a place for you, right, glad to trade my land of the free for the home of the brave. Yeah. Well, we conquered them redskins, they battled to beat them. I guess we showed them a thing or two about freedom. The freedom to claim whatever we like. This land is ours now, you best take a hike. Well, then they tried to ram Jesus right down the throat. Said, you're gonna like it and you better not choke. I think I'll buy me a young black slave to plow my land for free and build my home of the brave. This is the home of the brave. I didn't want it this way, I was just born here. I don't know what I am, but this is what's cool. Better watch what I do and watch what I say. I'm in the land of the free and the home of the brave. close the drapes when you get home. You better watch what you're doing and you better behave. You're in the land of the free and the home of the brave. This was the home of the brave. Well, I see all my choices on the color TV. Here's who you are and here's what you need. You better watch what you're thinking and hear what you say. In the home of the free and the land of the brave. This was the home of the brave. And no, I ain't bitching about what I've been given. The American dream disdains my kind of living. If there's a place free, or I gladly trade my land of the free for the home of the brave. Yeah, the home of the brave. Watch your ass, cowboy.
All right, so we're out here in Little Chico Creek, above Chico.
All this greed and violence has got to be solved. I've got a feeling to kill your brother if enough cash was involved. I'd like to see some motivation, some reprioritization. Like to see you raise your intellects to a higher elevation. Can't you solve your problems without intimidation and fear? Get a dose of reality, go to the mountains for a year. I got no need for synthetic and schematic electric grooves. You gotta be able to do it acoustic and live and still bust a move. What you need, you steal, and what you want, you rip off. Well, you can fake and take it, make all you want, you still won't have enough. You need to sell your mini truck, stop cutting your hair, and take a deep breath of this fresh mountain air. So tell me the truth, brother, are you enjoying your life? Do you like having to walk around carrying a gun and a knife? Or what are you trying to do? Digest as fast as you can? Aren't you thinking about how life will be when you're an old man? You need to get your crazy butt right out of town. Go straight up to the highest mountain to be found. Lace up your sneakers, turn off the hip-hop. Blaze yourself a trail straight up to the top. Sit your booty down on the peak you've selected. Check it out, look around and try to gain some new perspective. See the itsy-bitsy, tiny, whiny people down below. Cars and trucks and trains and planes, and what's it all for? Well, they're feeding their greed and meeting their need to dominate, control, and command everything they see. Why must they do you ask, and how can this be? Well, I feel it's based on fear and greed and insecurity. You say that I'm talking crazy shit, it's dudes like me I'd like to get, but why would you want to kill me, man? For I am not a threat. I speak the truth, got love on my heart. If you could try the same, maybe you could lose your urge to rape and kill and maim.
So what is the point of all this? I'll tell you so don't forget. As soon as you think you've seen it all, you ain't seen nothing yet. Stop fighting and a killing to get the goods. How about you go and learn to grow your own out in the woods? Stop talking all tough like some big badass who instead of acting like a fuckhead, just try to be good. I hope that I made your booty move with rhyme and rhythm, infectious groove, some funk and punk and other junk, hip hop on its way out of your trunk. I speak the truth, got love in my heart. If you could do the same, maybe you could lose your urge to rape and kill and maim. All you gangsters got me illin'. It's your brothers and sisters you're killing. I'd like to wish a piece to help to get your heads a chillin'. You know, I just don't understand it. You're running around just like a bandit, raping and a killing to get everything that you can get. Don't want no crankster gangster, don't need no greedy prankster. Keep the powder out your head before you become a monster. Take a break, try relax and love your brother is all I'm asking. Try it, you will like it, talk about peace and love everlasting. Stop the insanity. You know your monetary gain is your personal vanity.